28th.
Yeah, my cousin, David Carosa, he texts me as well. And no, I guess no surprise as far as some of these reschedules.
All right, we're live streaming now, and in a couple minutes we'll be starting the meeting.
President Anderson just texted. She won't be with us, but she gives her regards to everyone. Have a great session. She'll see you next week for the higher ed thing.
Excellent.
Chris, you know how to kill a party. Man, I tell you.
Okay, members, it's 9 a.m. Welcome to the Eastern Shore Delegation. Today is January 23rd, 2026. Please rise for the saying of the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Senator Carosa, could you please offer up prayer on our first session delegation meeting?
Absolutely, and thank you. As we gather for our first Eastern Shore delegation meeting of the 2026 Maryland General Assembly session, let us praise God and give thanks to the Lord because he is good. His love is eternal. Psalm 107, verse 1. Heavenly Father, God Almighty, we ask you to bless the members of our Eastern Shore delegation and our families and all of our delegation partners and their families. We ask you to bless our work together and to increase our wisdom and kindness as we strive to meet the challenges we face as a shore community and serve our shore constituents. We pray together in your most holy name, and together we say, Amen.
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 Thank you, Senator. Could I get a motion and a second to approve the February 28th or 2025 minutes from last year?
Motion to approve.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Delegate Hornberger, our treasurer, are you on this morning? Does not appear he's on.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Kevin, could you give the treasurer's report?
Good morning, everyone. Just walking over from the PACE breakfast. Yes, the treasurer report, as we had one transaction last year for flowers. And other than that, no transactions. We have a little over $2,000 cash on hand.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. Members, I believe you got a copy of the treasurer's report. Could you please give me a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's report?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Members, I believe Andy Harris is online, and let's see if we can bring him up and make an introduction here. Congressman, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good morning. I'm looking for you. I don't see you on my screen yet.
Hey, Lindsay.
That was not.
Oh, there you are. Okay, good morning. Senator, Congressman, thank you for being with us today. And
Close that for
it's
me.
our first session this year, and
Sorry.
we look forward to hearing from you. Barry, you got to mute your microphone, bud.
Sorry about that.
Okay, all right. Congressman, thanks for being with us today. The floor is yours. We've got about a half hour between your presentation, I'm sure, Q&A that'll come forward.
Okay, thank you. I hope everybody can hear me. Look, thank you. Good luck on the legislative session this year. I know you've got a lot on your plate. Look, it's been my honor to represent the Eastern Shore of Maryland. You know, if some people had their way, it would be a smaller Eastern Shore that I'd be representing. But you know, I put my faith in the Maryland Senate. They'll do the right thing and deal with the president with the governor's redistricting plan the way it should be dealt with. Anyway, let me talk a little bit about what I was able to do for the district in last year, and then answer some questions about what I need to do this year for you. We had about $50 million in community project funding for 15 projects across the district, the vast majority of them on the Eastern Shore. ranging, with the whole gamut of projects ranging from firehouses, volunteer fire company equipment, funding for the hospital being constructed, and other projects. We had an additional $50 million in other federal appropriations and spending commitments to benefit Eastern Shore residents that we supported. With regards to the offshore wind, there still isn't an offshore windmill built because I've been able to secure significant federal actions in Ocean City's fight to stop the offshore wind. And again, I think we'll prevail. I think hopefully this year in that. With regards to the blue catfish, we once again have unlocked federal dollars to support the processing of the blue catfish. I think that's the only practical solution for now. We certainly, wish we could get a change over at USDA with regards to the requirement for them to inspect. But as long as that requirement is there, the help in building processing facilities, I think, is what's going to help us in our fight against the blue catfish. We've also initiated some reforms to the federally funded oyster restoration. We want to shift the focus away from unproductive sanctuaries to supporting the public fisheries. Obviously, both are somewhat important, but the emphasis along the way in spending the federal dollars really has been toward some sanctuaries that are pretty unproductive instead of supporting public fisheries. So we're going to try to move the ball in that direction. We moved it a little bit in this year's appropriations bills to try to move it a little further down the road. I was the only member of the Maryland delegation that voted for the $50 billion in rural health care funding. We're going $168 million of which is going to be awarded to Maryland. It's a shame we could have gotten a little more, but the administration refuses to apply for a nutritious food waiver in the SNAP program. We probably would have gotten tens of millions of dollars more. We're still pushing the administration to do that. I think that's good for the program, and obviously would be good for the state in terms of getting some of those rural healthcare dollars. We're supporting the poultry industry whenever we can. We're going to have a meeting pretty soon with the Office of Management and Budget about the tournament system, which is what has made the poultry industry so successful in Eastern Shore and is being attacked by the Democrats in the administration, Democrats in the prior administration. And we're hoping to turn back some of those regulations so that we can keep our poultry industry competitive with the rest of the world. With regards to agriculture, we have made strides with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to put the brakes on putting solar panels on productive farmland. I think that's a bad idea. I think it's a bad idea for the country in general. It's particularly a bad idea for the Eastern Shore of Maryland, where the state government is fighting so hard to I will say, pave over the Eastern Shore with solar panels. And that would, of course, destroy the agricultural economy and the domino effect, destroy the poultry industry on the Eastern Shore. So we're fighting hard against that. Again, I would love to answer any questions you have. You're going to have a lot on your plate. You have a big budget deficit, and the governor. We reviewed the governor's budget. It's the usual smoke and mirrors. It's pass on costs to the local jurisdictions. It's let's empty out some funds that were actually supposed to be spent for something else. Pretty clear, an election year budget, but we'll see. We'll see what shakes out with that. I'm here to provide any help from the federal side that my constituents on the Eastern Shore need, and look for guidance from you for what some of those needs are. And with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Congressman, thank you very much. We'll get right to the questions. I might have a couple at the end. Delegate Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Congressman. Could you just clarify, you're working to prevent solar farms going on productive farm fields, or you've actually been able to stop that? So
that's a good question. So what the USDA, at our urging, what the USDA has done is said it is not going to administer the loans that it had given through one of the programs like the REAP program, which was a grant and loan program, and they are not going to give those subsidies when these projects are going to be put on productive farmland. Now, Some projects may be viable without those loans, but that's really the only thing, that's our only lever in the federal government to say, look, we're not going to allow federal taxpayer dollars to support putting solar panels on productive farmland. Furthermore, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, we rolled back the future of general federal subsidies. So not just federal subsidies that flow through the USDA, but general federal subsidies going through the investment and the production tax credits. So we make it much less attractive for the solar industry to put a solar panel anywhere, and in the particular case with the USDA funds, to put them on prime farmland.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Congressman, for joining us today. I more than anything just wanted to make a statement and just thank you for your efforts of the dredging of the Northeast River, top of the Chesapeake Bay there. This is a massive commerce thing for us. So we've got silted in, waterways, and we really appreciate you looking out for us at the top of the bay. So I just want to say thank you on that. We look forward to administering those dollars.
Thank you very much. I should have mentioned that, some of the things that we were able to do in terms of those millions of dollars bringing to the district are the dredging projects. Incredibly important. And they start at the top, like you say, the Northeast River, but it's the Wicomico River, it's Slaughter Creek, it's the Ocean City Inlet, it's the Ocean City Beach replenishment. I mean, dredging projects are just obviously incredibly important in a district like the 1st Congressional District. And we're glad we've developed a good relationship with the Army Corps of Engineers. One of the most exciting news is that we got $40 million put in one of the bills to actually obtain another dredge vessel, because the problem was with the 2 dredge vessels that were being used in the mid-Atlantic and then really up and down the Atlantic coast were both old, both frequently in repair, so that when we had an emergency dredge issue, it was just impossible to get one, because one of them would be in repair. Well, we've told the Army Corps of Engineers they have to obtain a new dredge vessel, and that's going to make a significant impact along the up and down the entire Atlantic coast, including Maryland.
Can't thank you enough. Keep up the good work.
Okay, Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Congressman. I got a couple, 2 or 3 comments or questions here. First of all, I want to thank Mark, your staff, Mark Brown, and got in touch with Delegate Hutchinson and myself. We're discussing some of the Alaskan seafood marketing strategies, possibly adopting some of that in Maryland. We're going to have him on next week at our Waterman's Caucus meeting, and I also invited the marketing people from Department of Ag, that hopefully we can work together to better promote some of the wild-caught Maryland seafood. We've had one of the worst oyster seasons I've ever seen in Maryland. Not that we don't have oysters, we got plenty of oysters. Been the worst oyster market I've ever seen, and unfortunately, our numbers are not going to look good this year from a harvest standpoint, and I'm sure some of the environmentalists are going to think that means that the oyster population is down, and that's far from the truth. It's really been a very, very difficult season with the worst market conditions I've seen in my lifetime, especially during Thanksgiving and Christmas, which it should be so robust that that you couldn't get enough. But this year they didn't have market, and that's a very strange phenomenon in this climate that we're in with seafood. So the other thing is, I'm going to have legislation in a cross-filed by Senator Caruso on 4 different sites, sanctuary sites that were closed 16 years ago that have basically silted over, and they were one of the best producing areas in the bay. They took 25% of the best bottom 16 years ago, and most of it has declined in its viability. The oysters have silted over. I've got a bill in this year along with Senator Caruso to rotational harvest at least 4 of these areas. They're going to need some funding. Obviously, the state doesn't have the funding to do it, and hopefully that we can get this legislation passed and start doing slowly rebuilding some of these once productive oyster bars that have gone to to a very unsustainable condition due to a lack of efforts and availability for oystermen to work these bars for the last 16 years. It was supposed to be a 5-year study. We're now at year 16 between the delays and intentional delays by some of the groups out there that got legislation put in. We've now found ourselves at this 16-year point with a lot of oyster bars, some of the best that are in desperate need of turning over the shell and some investment, which the watermen know that they're going to ultimately have to do. So we may need some help there. I'll be glad to talk with you or Keith or your staff, further to discuss that. But I do thank you for what you've done with blue catfish. I know that's been very productive, and that invasive species is an ongoing problem. And I really thank you and bringing over the Secretary Rollins to the Eastern Shore this year to unveil that financial input. And it's a huge help, and I thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Delegate. Let me just have one follow-up question for you. What is it about the oyster market that made it so unprofitable, you said, during the Thanksgiving and Christmas season special?
Well, Congressman, I think that there's a lot of oysters everywhere from many states. At one time, Maryland was really known for the huge oyster production. We shipped all over the country. I mean, my early days in the 70s and 80s, we shipped to Michigan and, Kentucky, all over the state or all over the country. And I think there are so many states that have gotten into aquaculture and just have oyster bars of their own. I mean, from Connecticut all the way down south around, into the Gulf of America. And there's so many areas that produce oysters now that, we're not number one, that everybody has to have Maryland oysters. I think they're just a supply from many places that we never had before.
Okay, thank you. No, thanks for explaining that. That's what I thought. I thought that as aquaculture picks up around the country, we're going to see more and more of that. Just a couple of comments. I hear more and more, the state of Maryland doesn't have the money to do it. The federal government has no money. I mean, we run a $2 trillion deficit. If the governor decided it was a priority, he would find the money. He certainly found, $380 million to fund schools. He could make some of these a priority. It's the governor's choice in his budget not to make them the priority. And again, the governor, commented earlier this week that, look, I regret that, we had, a request that we had a disaster that resulted in a request for FEMA dollars in Western Maryland. But the fact is that the governor didn't put forth any state dollars. The governor could have put forth state dollars and then said that it was the federal government's responsibility. The federal government is not responsible for everything. The governor needs to step up to the plate, and there's plenty of wasteful spending, as you all know, in the state budget. It's a matter of priorities. With regards to the other thing about the wild-caught catfish, the other big move that we made is we got the USDA to agree to put it on the list for food programs along with farmed catfish, because for some reason wild-caught catfish could not be sold into some of those programs, but we got the USDA again to change their regulations on that. That's very important as we go forward with the processing, is that we have an end market. So helping provide that end market is another thing we were able to accomplish, and we'll follow up on that and make sure that even there are potentially even more end markets for the product. Thank you.
Okay, Delegate Aaron's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congressman, good to see you, and thanks for all the work. I guess I just wanted to touch a little bit back on the energy and all the work you've done to help us with that. The offshore wind arguably is the most expensive form of energy we could ever come by, and I'm a little concerned. I saw that the president got a little involved with the governor on talking to the PJM, but it's kind of interesting to look at what we're doing in our budget today. Clearly, almost 25% of the deficit is being made up in this budget with dollars and cents from ratepayers, the Reggie funds that have gone into SEEF and what have you. To me, it's unconscionable to sit back and cry about our energy problems and our energy policies. Is there any other ideas or thoughts you have on what the federal government can do to move the governor to start looking at our policies? Pennsylvania has even discussed pulling out of the PJM, those types of things. And it doesn't seem like we're on the same page there, obviously. Rates are going up exponentially. We're moving these dollars that we've already paid. It's almost like a double tax on ratepayers. And I was wondering if there's anything else you might have to suggest we could do.
The only thing I suggest you do is you shine the light. The bottom line is you're absolutely correct to take money from ratepayers, put it in a fund. Don't spend the money out of the fund and then use that to make up your general fund deficit. I don't know if you did that in the private sector, you'd actually be investigated, probably indicted, probably go to jail for money laundering. The bottom line is that's the way this government works. The Maryland state government works. All I can say is that the fact of the matter is you're right. The investment has been in not only expensive sources of energy like offshore wind, which is the most expensive utility grade, because rooftop solar panels on homes is actually the most expensive because there's no economy of scale. But when you're looking at utility scale projects, offshore wind is 3, 4, 5 times more expensive than generation from natural gas. It makes no sense whatsoever. Obviously, heavily subsidized. Ratepayers subsidize. When they say this, we need to build this to have energy, you're building a very expensive source. And just like you say, the energy bills are. I was in a business last week, and the lady who owned the business said our electric bill used to be $900 a month 3 years ago. It's now $2,700 a month. It's not affordable. And it's because we've made bad energy decisions in Maryland. We've closed down efficient coal burning plants that have the full spectrum of pollution controls on them, and then invested instead in renewable sources that are not only expensive with regards to the construction of the project like offshore wind, but then the transmission costs, since you have to duplicate the grid to make up for the fact that you have intermittent sources. Those transmission costs are not only passed directly on to the ratepayers, there's actually, in the case of many of the ratepayers, a 10% off the top profit. So the BG&Es of the world, the electric producers of the world who also do transmission, have an interest in promoting projects that result in the need for more transmission because they can charge more and make more profit. This has to stop. The fact of the matter is Pennsylvania, and I've talked to the reps, some of the Pennsylvania reps fully support the Pennsylvania governor in saying he's going to consider withdrawing because they're tired of sending electricity into Maryland, which will not build a natural gas plant, using Pennsylvania natural gas right across the border. Pennsylvania builds natural gas plants, and Maryland expects to buy that electricity from Pennsylvania, and somehow using fossil fuel generated electricity in Pennsylvania is somehow cleaner than fossil fuel energy generated in Maryland. It's crazy. So this is all due to energy. We have to shine the spotlight, but you're absolutely right. To say that, we're going to take last year, the scam last year was we're going to take Empower money and we're going to provide a rebate to consumers. Well, that was their money to begin with. I mean, the bottom line is you've got to shine the light that the problem is that we are willing to buy energy from Pennsylvania, but not willing to produce the same type of energy in Maryland, and then hope to somehow that we're going to be part of the 21st century data center economy where you consume huge amounts of power. And the most frightening thing about the agreement that, the handshake last week at the White House was that we're going to price cap. Price caps never work. They only produce scarcity. That's all a price cap will do. And PJM fortunately came out with their own recommendation. I think everyone ought to take a serious look at it. I think it's probably a much better approach to the problem of data centers and the demand on consumers. But the bottom line is Maryland policy will not allow low cost sources of energy, despite ready availability, will not allow them to be used. And that's a problem for Maryland ratepayers. And you can't make it go away with a snap of the fingers.
Well, we're trying to bring back energy choice. I know there's a bill out there, but this CEF and Reggie, we're trying to get rid of Reggie. But when you look at CEF, you have 23 nonprofits, 23. And out of those 23, I think the salaries just of the officers is well over $16 million. And I urge anyone to take a look at these and tell me exactly what they do. And I think I don't know if there's federal pressure we can put on to start looking at these things because it's egregious. I mean, we're getting pushed and shoved as far as energy costs, and we keep complaining that we want to save the poor people, and we're killing the poor people. You know, and it's just, to me, it's you would hope we would wake up. But thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Energy costs, rising energy costs. The people who are hurt the worst are the lower class and lower middle class, and small businesses, because small businesses use a lot of energy. Again, you know, I would plead with the governor to start realistic energy policies that truly bring down the cost of energy. And the governor is not, as far as I'm concerned, there's no action in that. It's a you know, let's just subsidize the rates out of some other pot of money. That's not the solution.
Well, I was told by someone there's actually a bill to pull Maryland off the PJM, which would be insanity. But thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't laugh often. If that actually happened, that would be a disaster for Maryland. Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Congressman, for being with us this morning. Just to touch on a few points, it was interesting at a one of the receptions here, they had oysters from Nova Scotia. So to add to what Delegate Jacobs is saying, there's definitely a supply coming from sources we never heard of before. Want to thank you for the the dredge vessel, the new dredge vessel. That's huge news, as you know, the impact for Ocean City. Thanks for all your work on the offshore wind. The question I have is, it's my understanding with these solar farms, what they do is when they go in, they strip all the topsoil. It's something they can sell, and it also creates a brownfield where they don't have vegetation growing under the solar panels. Unfortunately, a lot of our farmers don't realize this. So when they sign those contracts, they're somewhat uninformed on that. And at the end of 20 years, if that company's still in operation, they really have, nothing left that they could pass on. It's no longer something that is an asset to their future generations. Is there anything we can do in light of that to help at the federal level, or any thoughts on that, Congressman?
And specifically with regards to the end of life issues for these solar projects, because
both, as far as an adequate bond to remove all the equipment and the hazardous waste that comes with the solar panels, but they're actually taking farmland out of production in perpetuity when all the topsoil is stripped. So we're actually losing that acreage forever, because it's no longer viable farmland if all the topsoil is stripped.
No, look, you're absolutely right. I mean, my assumption is when a solar panel goes on a piece of farmland, that farmland's gone forever. To make it even worse, the large percentage of the solar panels bought from China actually have, the forever chemicals on the surface. They will leach off the surface. They will contaminate that soil, and potentially that even if you didn't remove the topsoil, that topsoil could be contaminated by some of those chemicals, rendering it, under the latest regulations for the forever chemicals, useless to grow a crop in. I'm disappointed that Maryland, chose to target in a way, implicitly, if not explicitly, target farmland for solar projects. If they want to put solar panels on top of Walmarts, have at it all day. But they too quickly, and look, I was in the General Assembly. I know the makeup of the General Assembly. The rural representatives are in a minority, and frequently policy for the Eastern Shore of Maryland is made in Montgomery County, and that's a problem. It was a problem 20 years ago. It's still a problem with bills like the bill that basically took away the local ability to regulate the solar panels to a large extent. We're doing what we can using the federal mechanisms. Obviously, we can't stop if there's no federal subsidy flowing to a solar project, we don't have a hook into it. If there are, as I mentioned, both through the USDA and through the tax credits, we have removed those incentives. But it's up to the state, and unfortunately, the state is not allowing local jurisdictions to do it. But local jurisdictions should make a requirement that, if you want to put up a solar thing, you have to prove the product you're going to put there doesn't leach forever chemicals into our soil. That'd be very difficult for them to do. That would, again, put up impediments to these projects being done. But again, I'm doing everything I can at the federal level, but ultimately, some of this is going to have to be fought at the state and local level.
And I know you're good at math, so you know what we're up against. So,
yep.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate everything you do.
Okay, Congressman, the last question comes from Senator Carrozza. If she doesn't bring up redistricting, Congressman, I'm going to have a comment and question on that. But let me pass the microphone to the Senator Carrozza.
First of all, thank you, Congressman Harris, for all the good work you're doing for the shore. And, you highlighted, what you're doing on stopping offshore wind, the oyster restoration and the dredging, huge. In the lower shore, we really appreciate the projects that, the Newark water treatment. And then we're very excited about the UMES veterinarian school and everything you're doing to support that. My question is, I know, are well aware that the Maryland Department of the Environment allowed the general discharge permit for the animal feed operations to expire back in July without a new permit being approved. And you worked with us, I know, to with the EPA, but this falls back on Maryland. And by allowing that to expire, that equated to about $30 million in lost business for our builders, our realtors, our poultry farmers, our manufacturers. We are working with the Maryland Department of the Environment and the Maryland Department of Agriculture, kind of realizing, this situation and trying to fast track some legislation. Delegate Regina Boyce on the House side and myself are moving forward with some emergency bill to address that. I think my question is, just wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on that, but just to ask you, in your leadership role, as subcommittee chair of the Ag Appropriations Subcommittee, what else can you and we be doing together to support and strengthen Maryland's poultry industry?
I mentioned one of the things is we're going to have to look on, preserving the tournament system. Maybe it needs to have a couple of tweaks to it, but that system has worked with regards to, both the farmers who have the chicken houses as well as the vertically integrated companies. But with regards to the runoff issue, look, we'll look into it. I don't know the particulars of whether or not the EPA has allowed MDE to issue those permits on behalf of the EPA. If that's true, then what we frequently do is we put pressure on, we ask the EPA to put pressure on MDE to solve the problem, since again, in some of these relationships, they have allowed the state to basically function as their arm in the state. If that arm is not functioning, they'll get a nudge from upstream to get it functioning. So we'll look into that issue in particular. But the most important thing for the poultry industry is we have to prevent overregulation. An example is the tournament system regulation. We have to make sure that there aren't unreasonable federal regulatory actions with regard to the ability to either grow the grain crop or to have a poultry facility. I don't think that's going to occur. I've spoken with Secretary Rollins many times about the importance of the poultry industry. She commented that as she drove down to the shore for her visit, she saw the grain fields on each side. She knows that they're going to the poultry industry. That it's a integrated, symbiotic relationship that has to continue to exist. I think most of the threat, as always, comes at the state level. Again, I was was in the state Senate for 12 years. Every single year, there were some bills that would either directly or indirectly adversely affect the Maryland poultry industry. Because as we know, there are some people in Montgomery County who don't want a chicken to be grown on the Eastern Shore. Too bad. If you don't want them to grow in Montgomery County, fine, that's your decision. But don't make decisions for an important economic engine for a major part of the state. So again, we will attempt to leverage any federal input, because there is a lot of federal input into a lot of the industry to the extent possible. But the greatest hazard, of course, doesn't come out of Washington, D.C. right now. It comes out of Annapolis. So thank you.
Okay. All right. But Congressman, I'm going to briefly, because I know you have a passion for University of Maryland Eastern Shore and some of the things that you've done to help directly support them. I think Jim Mathias would like to speak on behalf of the university and just offer his thanks. And I'm going to grant this opportunity real brief to let him do that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Congressman Harris. I just want to take a moment to thank you on behalf of President Anderson. She can't be here today for the community project spending, the $1 million for Travis and Mark and Sean, Keith, Victoria. We'll be coming over to see you soon, both with the APLU, Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, American Association of State Colleges and Universities. But our dean, our students, and our future of UMES say a deep, deep statement of thank you. And I want to let you know we made the playoffs. The American Veterinary Medicine Association are coming in mid to late spring for their second visit. They were there. We passed those grades. We filled out what they'd like to see. We're taking our private monies, renovating facilities on campus so that when we secure that accreditation, we can bring that first cohort on the campus, hopefully in fall 28. We thank you. We're grateful, and your team has been terrific. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you very much. Obviously, one of my priorities is to see to it that veterinary school does get off the ground, because to follow up on Senator Carrozza's question, having veterinarians around is very important if you have an industry where you need, or animal health it depends on it. So we think to use a phrase, locally grown veterinarians are most likely to stay where they live or where they learn. And I think that veterinary school is going to be very important for the future of the poultry industry on the shore. So anything we can do, I'm glad to hear the certification process is going along well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Congressman, let me just say, as the chairman of the delegation, I think I speak with the prevailing mood of our members that rural representation matters. And, when we see the process that's happening in Annapolis with relationship to redistricting and folks from areas like Prince George's and Montgomery, a governor from Baltimore City who think it's best to redistrict our lone rural congressman, Republican congressman, is good business, is disconcerting at best, and at worst, it's patently offensive. We, during the last redistricting cycle, basically took the Bay Bridge, or the majority party tried to take the Bay Bridge and create this land connection between Anne Arundel, Howard County, and the Eastern Shore, as if there's any real political connection between the two. And they seem to be doing that again. And I don't know that I really have a question for you, other than to say that we appreciate the rural representation. We are fighters and scrappers. You are in the Congress, House of Representatives, and you are the people's chamber in this respect. And it's going to be rough and tumble as we're going through these exercises of defending our rural heritage. Politics isn't often Republican, Democrat. We often see urban versus rural, and without that type of representation in Washington for Maryland, we lose something essential. And we appreciate your leadership with agriculture. We appreciate your leadership on multiple issues that we care a great deal about. You were duly elected by the Eastern Shore, and I'd let you make your final comments after me making my statement there. And we thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will tell you, one of the funniest things that I read in the article yesterday was someone in I guess it was from the majority party in Anne Arundel County, commenting there are cultural connections between, in the district, because a lot of people drive across that bridge every day. I mean, it's like that. No, that is not a cultural connection. The willingness of urban, with I will tell you, with the exception of Senate President Ferguson, who I think understands that's not fair to representation of rural areas or good representation in general. The willingness, again, I call it the Montgomery County syndrome, that you don't really care about the rural areas. You treat them like chattel. You carve them up. You create policies for them, not understanding what it is. I think it's exceedingly important that we keep one of the two majority agriculture districts. We have the first district and the sixth district. Sixth district being drawn into Montgomery County makes it less rural. But the first district is the predominantly rural county, and to break it up shows a disregard for the value that rural areas have, not only to the state but to the country. I just don't think it's going to be successful. I think that people are going to wake up and realize that's not a fair thing to do. You should urge all your colleagues. It's not fair. Look, I didn't ask Delegate Hornberger, how does he like being in a district with Howard County? I mean, the bottom line is the new map is ridiculous. And I think common sense will prevail. That's all I can tell you. It's been my pleasure representing the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I hope they don't break it up so that I can represent it next term as well. And thank you very much for inviting me to your delegation meeting.
Yeah, Maryland has basically wrote the book on gerrymandering. It was an embarrassing exercise seeing that pterodactyl, sort of that paint splotch in the middle of the state of Maryland, as they try to do this thing where they try to connect communities for voting purposes, not necessarily representation of the citizens at large. And the fact that we're repeating something after the courts have basically ordered the map that we currently have, that we're repeating this is just difficult at best. So my only closing comment on this is we appreciate your leadership. We enjoy having you as our representative, and we look forward to continue working with you in your role in Washington. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, members, we are moving on with the Maryland Municipal League. I believe we have them online now, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Teresa Kuhns, the CEO of the Maryland Municipal League. I am driving right now, so I apologize for not having my camera on. I wanted to quickly thank you for having us. I have my team alongside with me. As you all know, especially many of you having local experience, we represent 161 incorporated cities and towns across the state. What does that mean from a state landscape? It's about 45,000 municipal employees across the state and 3,500 elected officials. We see about a 35% changeover every year in our elections in terms of our elected officials. We have 88 independent law enforcement agencies, 90 wastewater systems, 78 water systems. It's a pretty impactful number when you take the collective. It's also a pretty impactful number when you look at Eastern Shore. You have about 57 of our municipalities, the majority of our membership, and we're always happy to join you today. I'd like to hand it off to Bill George, our Managing Director of Advocacy, and Justin Fury, who can speak to our legislative priority this year and the work that we're trying to do to maintain local authority and bring some more revenue sources to all our members and the Eastern Shore.
Great. Thank you, Teresa. And thank you, Chair Adams. Good morning, everyone. I'm Bill George. I'm the Managing Director of Advocacy and Public Policy for the Maryland Municipal League. Just to kind of continue on Teresa's line of thinking, just a few more things about municipalities in Maryland. In addition to those, tens of thousands of employees, it adds up to about $2.5 billion in wage and compensation just for municipal governments alone. Municipalities on the Eastern Shore support about 4,600 jobs, 267 million in employee compensation, and about 460 million in annual economic activity for the region. In total, Maryland's municipalities make up less than 5% of the state's land area, but house 25% of the population and contribute 34% of the state sales tax revenue. This is where people want to work, live, and play. And this is particularly true on the Eastern Shore, which, as Teresa mentioned, has 57 municipalities in total. In Talbot County, municipalities represent 53% of the total county population. It's 51% in Dorchester, 46% in Wycomico, and 42% in Kent. So I think it's pretty clear that municipalities play a big role in shaping the economy and overall quality of life on the Eastern Shore. A little bit about MML as an entity from our advocacy perspective. We weigh in on a lot of important topics to our membership. You know, housing and land use policy, public safety, government operations, personnel, transportation, environment, and natural resources, AI and technology, just to name a few. Lastly, it was, of course, budget and taxation, which is a big point of conversation this time of year. So this leads me to introducing my colleague, Justin Fiore, the Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, who handles this issue, and we'll talk a little bit about MML's priority. We've heard from some of our Eastern Shore municipalities recently about issues of affordability, the cost of replacing or upgrading aging infrastructure, economic development, and trying to do this with limited funding sources. Our priority this year ties into all of these. So with the permission of the chair, I'd like to turn it over to Justin to talk about MML's legislative priority. Thank you for the time this morning.
Sure.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Adams, and good morning, all. Our core challenge really is our over-reliance on property taxes to pay for essential services, whether that's, local town police, trash collection, local street repairs. These are the quality of life things that residents and businesses truly value. And unlike the state or counties, municipalities lack diverse options to grow with economic activity. And property taxes make up more than 50% of the average general fund. So our approach this year, given the state budget reality, is to both gather data and find solutions for diversification and to be able to modernize. And it's important to say we want to do this with state efforts and affordability in mind. And Ways and Means Chair Janelle Wilkins has agreed to sponsor a task force to that end. This will be our chance to talk about economic development, things like tax differential, and the success of Ocean City, which has a 0.5% food and beverage tax, which simultaneously reduces the tax burden on residents and brings in more visitors to businesses. So we're really looking forward to finding ways to help Maryland grow out of their current budget situation. And one of those keys is diversifying our local revenues.
Okay, thank you. So are you ready for us to pass the torch to our members for questions?
I think so, Mr.
Absolutely.
Chair. Okay, all right. Delegate Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Justin, I think you slightly touched on this, but the issue of tax differential has been a big topic within Dorchester County and the city of Cambridge. And in my last discussion with them, they had said that it's really being pushed over to MML and legislation that MML will be working on. Is what you're saying really that the study that you just talked about is the most immediate way that you're going to even talk about tax differential?
Thank you, Delegate. That's a good question. We don't have any legislation right now on tax differential. It's not numerically listed in the legislation, but part of the task force's mandate is to understand all of the different revenue sources that are coming into municipalities and counties under the framework of how do we modernize. And I think in that approach, we have room to talk about issues like tax differential, because one of the big challenges, of course, in it is how do we make sure county revenues are still whole if they have to share some of the existing revenue with their municipality. So we think this is probably the time to do that, because obviously we understand the challenges that counties currently have in their budgets and want to make sure that they can provide all of the services they need to while making sure the municipal residents aren't being double taxed. So I think it can be part of a holistic approach that the bill offers the opportunity to have, more so than saying we're pushing for this as MML in this area.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any further questions. I suppose I'd like to just tie in with what Delegate Hutchinson was saying. And last year, the year before last, I believe MACO, when they presented, we talked about these concerns about the state of Maryland passing unfunded mandates down to the county, some of the pressures that relate to a negotiation that you might be seeking through the tax differential comes through the lens of, are the counties able to have a valuable conversation over the subject of tax differential? And I would argue, and have argued in the past in front of the Eastern Shore Association, municipalities, and other groups, that when the state of Maryland continues to look at property tax revenue, the increasing volume of property tax dollars that come into the counties, instead of the state acknowledging and saying, okay, the counties can best choose how to spend this money, which, by the way, could be establishing tax differential policy with the municipalities. Instead, the counties are having to play defense because they fully expect, while the numbers are coming in, the increase in revenue to the counties are coming in and they're increasing, that they've got to play defense because they know what's coming. A series of unfunded mandates, for which we already know in this budget that we got a couple of days ago. Frankly, we know it's coming. It's there. The last comment I'll make, and I'll ask your thoughts because I believe it's dynamic. It's not just a single line argument between the counties and the municipalities, is that if the state of Maryland continues to look to the counties to pick up the slack on their budget woes, and like they've done this year and surely in future years, how can you really have a valuable, engaging conversation with the counties about tax differential?
Mr. Chair, if I can jump in.
Sure.
We hear you. And first, I'd like to assure this group that the counties are also supporting our priority. So this is a joint effort to have this modernized look at our revenues. But when we see the budget pass off onto local jurisdictions, which, by the way, I was overjoyed to hear you all understand it in that first conversation with the congressman, the cities and towns are also getting that. We maintain the roads in the state, yet we continue to see a drop off. Next year, it drops off. We need support from this delegation to protect our HURs, to get it back to the level we were promised after 12 years of not having it. There are those programs like Program Open Space, that's been cut. So we have our work cut out for us, and our cities do, for the next few months. We will be working in tandem with the counties. We work very closely on the majority of our issues. The reason why we don't have a specific tax differential bill is because it works differently across the state, and we don't want to harm others. And that is a conversation we've had with our Eastern Shore municipalities. We know where Ocean City, for example, is. We know where Cambridge is. We've talked about it. But I will share with you, I think it's best for us to figure that out in a more holistic approach, as Justin approached or already suggested. But we certainly understand and appreciate that feedback. We are doing our best to make everybody happy with 161 very unique communities. You can only imagine the different opinions involved. So we try to take a very neutral approach for the majority. But either way, counties and municipalities both, we both provide a ton of revenue to the state, a number of services, essential service to our residents of the state, and we're not getting a dollar or a penny back. If we had a penny back from that sales tax, we would have a different conversation and, frankly, a different state budget to look at.
Right. Well, my thoughts on that basically falls down the same category of what I said at the outset, is that the partnership between the counties and municipalities, it can and should be happening. It doesn't surprise me that MECO is working potentially in partnership with the municipalities as we sort this out. But the last time I heard highway user revenues as being an issue is when Martin O'Malley was governor. And I think the history shows that at some point, even the citizens understand that Maryland has got a budget problem that's out of control, right? And this is me talking. I'm the politician for the state. I know you're trying to work in partnership with the administration and the budget committees and et cetera. But what I'm saying is that when the state of Maryland is doing what they're doing with these unfunded mandates, it's putting pressure on the local jurisdictions. The last thing I'll say about property taxes is, I'm a property owner. I see the taxes going up, and these are taxes that do flow through to the people that in some cases can afford it least. And so, while the coffers are going up in the counties, Maryland can see it. At some point, we need to think about the affordability of what it takes to live on the Eastern Shore and throughout the state of Maryland. Property taxes increasing the way they are dramatically, and with phased-in assessments that really can hurt, for example, tenants who are living in homes where landlords have to pay these property taxes. And I worry not necessarily whether or not MML and MECO can come together with an agreeable solution. What I worry about is Maryland stepping in the middle of that process with a funding difficulty and expecting the property tax revenue to be there, and it almost has to be a short-term solution. At some point, they've got to raise taxes, but in this 1 year, that's my concern.
I understand completely, and we do too. I mean, I think Justin said it best. It's our only authority, and we don't want to make it more unaffordable. I completely agree.
Yeah. Members, if you have any other questions, raise your hand. Otherwise, it seems like we understand MML's priorities quite well, and I think we've got Mako on tap. Okay, thank you, MML. And Michael Sanderson, I see you on the screen, and anxious to hear your feedback after that conversation. You're going to share some news I wasn't aware of, and curious on your thoughts.
All good. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks everyone for having us. I'm Michael Sanderson, Director at Mako. Joining me this morning are a couple of my colleagues who work on policy, Kevin Canali and Dominic Butchko, and I'll turn things over to them for most of the nuts and bolts, but honestly, Mr. Chair, you teed us up perfectly with your phrase, playing defense. Like every stakeholder, we come to the table with our own priorities, but every year for us is a matter of trying to play defense against budget shifts and costs and unfunded mandates and more burdens on local services, on local taxpayers and local budgets, and our local officials who are trying to deliver services on the front line. So you've heard that song and dance from us year after year. Many of you have been really helpful as we try and fend off some of the bad ideas that tend to pop up each legislative session. This year will be no different. We'll have a lot of things to work on. We're going to try and get a quirk out of last year's budget resolution to have the cost of wrongful convictions billed to the counties. The Lower Shore has one already sent and one on the way, and these are ridiculous and outrageous to land in the county budget. We're going to take some heat for resisting the leadership's bill on ICE 287G programs, the bill in to wipe out those programs with the local sheriffs and local jails. We'll resist that bill. I don't know what our prospects are of slowing that down, but that's what we do. We stand up for our local leaders and local priorities. We're definitely in for the fight on highway user revenues. Many of you were big helps. It was 4 years ago when we got an extension and a bump forward on the funds that go to our municipal governments, to Baltimore City, and to county governments to maintain local roads and bridges. Without a bill this year, we fall off a massive cliff to the tune of more than $100 million a year. The General Assembly has been our friend, but they've always done this incrementally, and we got to come back and sort of beg like paupers for another extension or another bump. We're in that year to do so. We're optimistic, but without it, we'd be in deep trouble. That's just a real quick hit on a handful of issues, but we'll be in each of your committees, and hopefully another opportunity to come back and join you later in the session and maybe talk about other things that have popped up. For now, let me hand to my colleagues and talk about two big overarching issues, just budget and fiscal stuff. Generally, this is going to be that kind of a year where they're looking under every couch cushion. We're already in for what looks like about $200 million to contribute toward this budget cycle. That's going to hit county budgets for this coming year. And housing and sort of housing affordability issues we know are going to be high profile. It's going to be a contentious battle over land use authority and that sort of stuff. So let's start, if you would, Mr. Chair, with Kevin Canali to talk about budget and fiscal issues.
Thank you, Michael, and I apologize to the group for also joining while in transit to another meeting, but I'm happy to be here and I appreciate the opportunity. I want to start off with just budget stuff, as Michael said, a big deal for us. We're still working through the budget, but I want to lead with one distinction, and you'll hear a lot the governor highlighting that this budget has an increase of $380 million in local aid. Local aid. Well, I want to explain to everyone what local aid is so that you have this to kind of go on when you hear these numbers. About 97% of that increase goes to the schools. Counties pass that money through. Counties do not control it. So while local aid may sound like a bunch of money for counties and municipalities to do things like public safety and roadway maintenance and all the other things that we do each and every day for our residents, it is not. The 97% of that increase in local aid goes right to the schools. So calling this local aid creates the impression of support for counties and municipalities. Almost all of it is straight up education funding. So we wish that they'd be a little bit more honest in the budget documents in the debate and call education funding education funding. Highway user revenues, like Michael said, we need a bill. We're going to fall off a cliff unless we get a bill. This is part of the cycle that we go through where we get a temporary funding increase and then they make us come back and beg to at least keep us where we are or bump us up again. So we're going to be, you'll see bills in the House and the Senate to keep us where we are, restore highway user. We do think that there'll be another conversation around transportation after the election and maybe a holistic view. So I think our ask is to at least keep us where we are and get us to that next big thing, whatever that's going to be. A few more things in the budget that stand out to us and concerning, especially for disparity grants. Eastern Shore, many disparity grant counties, these are counties that don't have the base to raise the kind of revenue that they need. So the state has a program to help them with that. The disparity grant program has zero growth for 3 years. So that's flat funding, even as costs continue to rise. That's concerning for us. Also, retirement cost shift. Michael mentioned earlier between this year and last year, when we tally the numbers, we're looking at about $200 million on the backs of county governments to help close the budget hole. So another shift in this year's proposal in the BRFA, 50% of increased retirement costs for schools, community colleges, and libraries. That's about a $40 million hit across the state for counties. Community colleges, it might look good at the offset that they did get a bump for this year, but the formula growth is capped at 3% for the next 3 years. So that leads to, I think, around $27 million in cuts for them compared to where they would be. Another huge issue is rating the 911 trust fund to help pay for MDEM. We know that there's a lot of uncertainty at the federal level. We know that those dollars are uncertain to help emergency management, but 911 trust fund revenue should be sacred. This money goes directly to the 24 911 centers in Maryland run by counties, and it should stay there. So while we think that MDEM needs help and we need to be able to protect our residents and be ready for disasters, taking it out of the 911 fund is not the way to do it. And then there's a significant unfunded mandate in the BRFA when it comes to assisted outpatient treatment. In the BRFA, there's a new concept that counties have to establish assisted outpatient treatment centers. If they don't, the state is going to establish it for them and then send counties an invoice for 100% of the costs. That's a big deal. We haven't seen that before. So that's just another one that stands out to us. So again, $200 million between this and last year's fiscal plan to help close the state gap, even though counties face the same inflation, workforce shortages, economic uncertainty as the state does. And we don't control most revenue tools, I think, as MML mentioned. So we can't serve as the state's fiscal shock absorber without consequences for our residents. And we'd ask for help in trying to eliminate some of these shifts and get us back where we need to be so that we can deliver those services every day. And I'll turn it over to Dom and happy to answer any questions at the end.
Yeah, so thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for having us here. So the other big issue besides money is housing. Housing was really big in 2024. We saw it come up surprisingly in 2025, and in 2026, it's going to be a central issue, especially for several of the folks I see on this call. Taking a step back, I want to talk about MAKO's broad strategy when it comes to housing legislation. We have drawn a firm line that the solutions for Maryland's urban core, Big 8 jurisdictions in the DC, Baltimore area are night and day different from the solutions needed to address housing in Eastern and Western Maryland. And so in a lot of the legislation we're seeing from the governor's office, we've taken the firm stance, just keep the rurals out of it. Unless you're going to make the massive investments in infrastructure, unless you're going to do the things that we actually need to see to get the housing we want on the Eastern Shore in particular, the solutions that they're putting forward just aren't going to be the things to move the needle for you guys. We've heard that loud and clear from our members, and we've taken that message and are going to continue to take that message. There's a few bills that I'm just going to put on your radar that have dropped already. So the governor is going to have 3 bills in his legislative package, 2 of which will have a direct impact on the Eastern Shore. The third won't really. The first bill dropped already, Senate Bill 36, House Bill 239, and this is the Starter and Silver Home Act. As drafted, it's a pretty significant preemption on local land use around setbacks, what can go into an area zoned for single family, historic preservation, etc. One of the big things they're trying to do is they're trying to allow more types of development in land that's set aside for single family. We've been pushing right now to keep those modifications, again, to Maryland's kind of urban core, Big 8 jurisdictions, talking about potentially using population thresholds as a mechanism for whether that does or doesn't apply. One thing that this group should think about about and that we're talking with our folks about thinking about is what if we tie it to sewer and water capacity? And so in some rural jurisdictions, there is sewer and water capacity, but in the most part, that's mostly in the towns and urban areas. So it won't be as much of an impact. We're still exploring the feasibility of that, but that's a potential compromise that's been floated that we just want to highlight for you. Additionally, there's going to be a bill on regulatory certainty, so vesting and impact fees. That is going to be from Senator Augustine and Delegate Baylor. I believe that recently dropped. I don't have the bill number in front of me, but we can share that. Similarly, we've been taking the hard line on that those solutions should only be applied to Maryland's urban core. When we're talking with our rural folks about what kind of housing they want to see, what they're already approving, the regulatory certainty and impact fee stuff, those problems aren't coming from you. You should be left out of it. We're aggressively pushing for that. I am happy to say there was the idea, a very bad idea, about mandating third-party review. We were able to kill that before the bill even dropped. So we already have one victory on the board. We got 80 more days to go, and I cannot wait to work with you guys to get there.
Okay, I like to hear about victories early on in session. Delegate Aaron's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael, guys, really appreciate it. I just want to say for all the work you guys do, I really appreciate all you give to us and all you talk to us about. But I do want to make special note of I'm a member and a fan of the Kevin Kennelly fan club, and I love he's using his fan club picture for the screen. I think that's great. But I do have a couple serious questions, and I'm probably going to take a little thunder from Delegate Grice. But with the newly implemented rural caucus, that seems to be one of what we will call a fair and balanced caucus, unlike the governor's redistricting commission. We got 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats on that. And I was wondering, with the makeup of MACO, what is the vote count needed to push legislation to the forefront in MACO between the counties?
Delegate and members, MACO's legislative committee includes representatives from each county, and we do one county, one vote. So as a practical matter, there are 24 votes out there. We have a special process in our bylaws where someone can ask for a supermajority vote and it needs 3/5 to pass. That is used very, very infrequently. Reasonably often when MACO has a split, whether it's geographical or philosophical or whatever, we frequently steer those bills to stay out of it. I think MACO's at our weakest when we end up saying, well, the 14 counties who like this, let's go pass the bill, and the 10 counties who hate this, to hell with them. I think that's weak for MACO. But we are one county, one vote, and nominally it's a majority vote wins the day on taking a position, with those general considerations sort of lying in the background. I will tell you, and you know, you've participated as a county commissioner in MACO deliberations back in the day. People think that behind closed doors MACO votes are always like these 16-8 red versus blue or urban versus rural splits and that sort of stuff. The number of issues that break down that way is a tiny percentage. You all, I think, would be really surprised to see how frequently even the brightest blue big suburban jurisdictions also don't like being told what to do by Annapolis. Even if philosophically they might like a certain idea, in most cases, they're like, but that should be our call, not theirs.
I think it's a great opportunity for us as far as the rural caucus to actually get people working towards a common goal, because now you're being faced with, you're no longer Republican or Democrat necessarily, you're rural versus the world. And I just appreciate what you guys are doing. I just wanted to see what else could be done, but I appreciate your comments. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, and co-chairman of the Rural Caucus, Delegate Jeff Grice, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate that MACO is taking a strong stand on preserving local control with zoning, and honestly, this is probably I shouldn't say probably. I think that this housing issue will be the biggest issue I think the Rural Caucus will take up this year, and the point being that in the rural parts of Maryland, they're diverse, and they're diverse for a reason. Ocean City is a lot different than Hebron and Cambridge or Chesapeake City, or you go all the way out to Cumberland. The distinction between all of those, it's the people over time who've made local zoning decisions that crafted that identity, and when we start thinking about statewide gentrification, then over time we're going to start seeing, our state not have that individual identity, and I think that's a huge mistake. And I think it would be a mistake for MML and MACO to not take a hard line on this particular issue. And so on Tuesday, housing is going to be the issue. We have Secretary Day and the Secretary of Planning on that call. And so we're going to ask them, what is it that the state's trying to accomplish here? And then we're also going to have you guys and MACO and MML to hopefully steer that conversation. But before you guys, we hear from you all, we want to hear from the actual planners who were on the ground. So we have Leslie Grundon from Caroline County. He's been doing it for, I think the last 25, 30 years. I think we're close to getting the planning director from Montgomery County, actually. And the reason why we want that person, he's very well respected as well, but they have urban, suburban, and rural in Montgomery County. So, I want to get their perspective. But the irony in all this is, I was a commissioner 20 years ago. For 8 years, we served through the O'Malley administration. And at that time, they were telling us, well, hold on, we don't want growth. We don't want housing. Instead, we want a down zone. We did tier mapping. We did Plan Maryland. A couple years later, we created the TMDLs. And what we did is we stifled growth. And so now what are they going to do? The state wants to say, hey, you know what? The counties aren't and the towns aren't doing a good enough job growing. So we're going to take control of that. Well, no, how about we do the opposite? Instead of you taking control, how about you let those reins go on TMDLs? How about you let those reins go on this down zoning? Reverse that. Give the locals more flexibility to grow, and then we will. I think they're taking the exact opposite approach. And I think that's what's going to hopefully get fleshed out on Tuesday, to be quite honest. And I think this will be one of the central issues that I think that we're going to face. And what's good about our caucus, and I think the way we're going to organize it, we're not going to have presentations. What we're going to do is we're going to have 4 or 5 different issues, 4 or 5 questions, and it's going to be an open dialogue. And so it'll just be one comment after another, hopefully back and forth. So again, we can flesh out all these different issues, and that's what we're going to see on Tuesday. So we look forward to it. And I do appreciate you guys taking a hard line. I was disappointed last year that you guys supported the solar bill with amendments. And I would be disappointed if you did the same with this, but it doesn't sound like you're going to. And I appreciate you carving out hopefully an exception for the rural counties.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just a quick follow up on that in your exchange about the housing issues. Here's a very specific question. A central fight is going to be exactly where this stuff is going to apply. I mean, if your crystal ball is anything like mine, 1 or 2 bills are almost sure to pass this year. No matter what resistance we give locally, whatever pushback we have technically, I think the leadership is really committed to doing something and claiming we're solving the housing problem. I think bills are going to pass.
Right.
And a central question is, where should it apply? And right at the moment, the secretary and the governor are saying in the rural counties, it should apply not just in the municipalities, but anywhere that's served by public water and sewer. I think that's a mistake. I think all of you in your districts know of areas that might nominally have public water and sewer, but do not have capacity to suddenly add 1,200 new high density units on those systems. You don't have capacity to fill all that stuff in. And it seems like the governor's bill is saying any place with a sewer line, it should be green light, develop as dense as possible, apartment buildings, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that's good policy. And you all might be more effective than us in making that specific point. So I hope that's part of the conversation on Tuesday and going forward. We're with you. Thank you.
Delegate Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us this morning. Gosh, I'm actually a little torqued to hear about that AOT funding now is being pushed down to the counties. I fought against that in HGO to make sure it wasn't going to be an unfunded mandate and had the Department of Health here in this office assuring me that that's not going to happen. So it looks like it lasted 1 year until they came back and reneged on that promise. So with that same vein, I've heard that there's an expansion of 311 to all counties this year. Senator Kagan has the bill moving forward. I've asked, is this going to be an unfunded mandate to the counties? Are you guys following that? And I want to get maybe the truth on, is there going to be a funding issue that the counties will be on the hook for this? I keep hearing it's all going to be under AI, and it's cheap. So you guys following that? Know anything about it?
Yeah, we are, Delegate. First, thank you so much for being a bulwark on unfunded mandates. But you're right. The flavor of the month in state budgeting has been, how can we keep delivering a service and offload it from the state's budget onto somebody else's? They've got pension costs they didn't anticipate. Stick half of it to the county, and that's going to be $140 million this coming year. Take the assessment office and just bill the county. Send them an invoice for running a state function. This idea of AOT looks like it's maybe a last in, first out candidate for the same thing, but make the counties either run the program or bill the counties for a state program. I think this is terrible budgeting practice, and it just seems to be the flavor of the month for the state. 311, I guess there's a potential for it to go that direction. We've been collaborating on the front because it's all been built to avoid that local, that unfunded mandate, that this would be a state-run program to work around those counties who already have local programs. I can't see if Kevin is still in the room. He's been real close on this. Kevin?
Yeah, sir, I can talk about it. And thank you, Delegate, for the question. And thanks for looking out for us on this issue. So 311, this has been an idea for a while. We were successful in rolling out a Next Gen 911 program across the state, and that was a big effort. I do think that the technology, the rapid evolution of this technology has made this a little bit easier, but the bill itself, this is designed to be a kind of a rollout. So you complete one task and you build upon it and you go from there. We have been assured, and there's language that will be in the bill, that this will not cost counties money, that this is the state through Do It mostly leading the charge here, and that the only back-end, we might have some back-end issues that we need to clean up some websites because AI is going to be answering questions. If it's scrolling through your website and you have the Christmas tree collection from 1998 or whatever, that's got to go. So we should probably be doing that anyway. But really, that's from our perspective and working through the work group and with the assurances from the sponsors. The intent here is not to make this an unfunded mandate, and we'll make sure that it stays that way as this process moves forward. But appreciate any insight that you have here and appreciate your support on making that a reality.
All right. Well, we'll see how it lasts this until next year. Just a point of confirmation. Is it correct that the other 50% of the teachers' pensions has been pushed down to the counties this year too?
Yes, Delegate. In the governor's proposed the budget reconciliation bill, the BRFA, they've got about $80 million in rising costs for pensions for teachers, community college employees, and this year for the first time libraries. And they've taken that number, cut it in half, and they're going to send a $39 million set of invoices to counties on top of the 93 or so that they stuck us with in last year's budget. Last year's budget was permanent, and now there's another layer on top of it. So we'll be in for 130 some million of just sending an invoice to the state for something we don't manage or control. Awful.
Thanks.
Okay, so Mako, I think we have all of our questions answered. I will share with you on February 6th, DLS, nonpartisan group here in Annapolis, is going to be giving us a fiscal briefing for local revenues, and they've asked for a full hour to do a presentation. I think after this engaging conversation, I know why they want an hour, because I believe we're going to have, as members from the Eastern Shore, some real problems and concerns. The other thing I'll augment what you're saying is, it used to be the governor presents a budget, the legislature could only ever cut from that budget. Well, that changed. And so while we're sitting here talking today, the reason why this whole thing's so dynamic is by the time the legislature is done with the budget, we might add to it. We might do things that even go further. So it's harder to really peg where this is going to end up, depending on where the priorities are and who and what gets a say as to where the money comes from. The other thing I'll share with you is that on February 13th, we have a housing panel with Secretary Day, and we've invited Habitat for Humanity on the Eastern Shore and also Diakonia. These are two providers for housing and organization process for communities of need. I should say to you that we on the Eastern Shore have this particular problem where I think so much attention is paid to the large city issues with housing. One of the bills the governor's passing or trying to pass this year has to do with transit-oriented housing. With us on the Eastern Shore has we have a very direct interest in trying to help with housing here in the rural parts of the state on the Eastern Shore, and I'm certain that the administration wants to address and work with us on the Eastern Shore, and so we're looking forward on February 13th to hear sort of a feedback as to what's going on the ground, where the difficulties are financially, and how we can help citizens. I do have one question for you. Wycomico County sent a letter to the delegation on January 5th related to the Water Lomax Act. Now, we sort of discussed that at the front end, but could you just within maybe a minute or two describe what happened last year so we're all up on the same page? And is there an action that MACO is going to take to try to correct this issue? So the point in this question is twofold. One, just briefly describe what the act was, what happened, and then how the MACO is intending on addressing this.
I'll try and do this in a real quick whirlwind, Mr. Chair, at your suggestion. A number of years ago, Maryland created a law to say if you've been convicted of a crime, you serve time, and then something pops up to reveal that you were wrongfully convicted, they now have a formula that the state uses to basically try and make people right with money as best they can. That's the Walter Lomax Act for folks who have been unjustly or wrongfully convicted. Last year, not in the governor's budget proposal in the BRFA, but in the staff series of proposals, those of you who sit on the Appropriations Committee or Budget and Tax are familiar with how the legislative staff will frequently have suggestions. You could cut this, or you could add that, or you could change this formula, you could cap this or whatnot. And one of their ideas they threw against the wall was, hey, when we are sending these checks to people who have been wrongfully convicted, maybe we could bring the counties and give them a skin in the game and have the counties pay for half of it because it was the state's attorney who did the prosecution. And somehow, surprisingly enough to us, that actually got into the BRFA bill and ended up passing last year. This is bonkers public policy, top to bottom. The state's attorneys are not hired and managed by county governments. They're independently elected, as you all know. The case we're seeing right now in Worcester County is a $4 million settlement that all traces back to the state employee who was working in the crime lab and screwed up all the data. It had nothing to do with bad actors at the county level, even the elected state's attorney. It was bad actors at the state. And they're going to send Worcester County a $2 million bill. You've got to be kidding me. We hope to have a bill. We'd love your support. It's tough to get something out of a budget plan in a tough year like this, but this is terrible public policy, and it's never even had a hearing. So that's the short version. We'd love your help on it.
Okay, so the short answer is you have legislation that MACO is going to be advancing on the subject?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Members, are there any other questions for MACO before we move along? Doesn't sound so. Thank you very much for the presentation, both MML and MACO. That was a wonderful exchange, and politics in Annapolis is always messy. The sausage we make looks good in the end, but I think we've got some difficulties at the moment. Thank you.
But thank you all.
Members, we need to move forward to the federal updates. I think we certainly got one from the congressman, but let's move along. I see Alyssa Hastings and Kim Cradaville. Would you like to take a moment and
yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies for being off camera. I'm just dealing with a little cold, getting over it, but just wanted to extend greetings from Senator Van Hollen, Alyssa Hastings, Eastern Shore Regional Director for the Senator. Wishing you guys, everyone, a really fantastic and productive session. Just wanted to bring a really brief update that Senator Van Hollen and Senator Alsobrooks are conducting our congressionally directed spending processes together again this year. We hosted 2 webinars this week, one for local governments, one for nonprofits. Both of those will be available on our websites. And Kimberly Cradaville, my counterpart in Senator Alsobrooks' office, and I are happy to take any meetings with local government leaders or nonprofit leaders who would like to discuss applications before our portals open. We'll keep you posted on when we have a date for that. And as always, I'm here to help with any federal issues you have for any of your constituents. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Kim?
Mr. Chairman. I have nothing to add. I was just what Alyssa said, and welcome to session. Always good information we get here on Fridays. So thank you all. You all know where to find us. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. I'm not seeing anybody from the congressman's office, but I'll just give it a second. We have 50 participants on here.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Mike Detmer here from Congressman Harris's office. Please reach out if we can be of assistance. Thank you.
Okay. Members, we are at the end of the meeting. Any open questions before we close for today's meeting? Okay, I need a motion and a second to close the meeting.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Thank you very much and have a good day.
See y'all later. Happy Friday.
Mhm.